They told you life was random, that things just happen, that luck, genetics, hard work, or timing decide your future. But they left something out, on purpose. Because if you knew how reality really worked, you wouldn't be so easy to control. You wouldn't obey the rules they wrote. You wouldn't buy what they sell or fear what they push. Hidden beneath religion, buried under science, and glossed over by self-help books, there's a blueprint. 7 laws. Not laws of man, laws of nature, consciousness, and creation. Ancient, hermetic, undeniable. These aren't fluffy affirmations or feel-good phrases. They're mechanical. They govern how your mind builds reality, how energy responds to thought, how cycles run your life, and why things keep happening the way they do. You've felt them, without knowing what they were. Until now. These 7 hermetic powers aren't just concepts. They're tools. You've been using them your whole life, just in reverse. It's time to wake up and start using them for yourself. You were never taught how powerful your mind really is, only how to use it to memorize, obey, and survive. From the moment you could understand language, you were handed a framework. You were told what's possible and what's not, what's real and what's fantasy, what's worth striving for, and what's dangerous to even think about. And you accepted it, not because you were weak, but because you were young, impressionable, open. The law of mentalism, the first hermetic principle, says everything begins in the mind. Everything. Not just your beliefs or your attitude, but reality itself. Your outer world is a projection of your inner state, not metaphorically, mechanically. Your relationships, your finances, your habits, your opportunities, your patterns, they're all echoes of the thoughts you repeat, the assumptions you hold, and the identity you've unconsciously adopted. This is why some people break cycles and others repeat them. It's why 2 people in the same room can live in completely different worlds. Because the real battlefield isn't out there, it's in the mind. And here's the part no one tells you. You're already using this law all the time. You're not just living life, you're projecting it. If your internal story is that life is hard, people are untrustworthy, or you're not worthy of success, your mind filters everything to prove that belief true. And worse, it creates conditions to support it. Your perception becomes the lens, your emotions become the charge, and your actions follow suit. You become the architect of your own limitation, without even realizing it. But the same mechanism that traps you can free you, because if you created the current reality through unconscious thought, you can reshape it through conscious direction. That's not wishful thinking, it's hermetic truth. The mind is the first layer of creation. Before energy moves, before form manifests, before cycles unfold, thought comes first. Thought is the seed. If you can master your mind, you master the code of your life. But mental mastery doesn't come from pretending everything's fine or forcing positivity. It comes from awareness, observation, clarity. Learning to watch your own thoughts like a hawk and ask, does this belief build me or bind me? Does this story expand me or trap me? Most people never question the inner monologue. They assume it's just their personality, their voice. But it's not. That voice was shaped, programmed, often by people who were broken themselves. The law of mentalism invites you to wake up from the noise and begin again, not by force, but by choice. Choose your thoughts like you'd choose the foundation of your home, because that's exactly what they are. Some truths are too raw for YouTube. Sign up to Insights Academy in the link below to get the deeper knowledge we can't say here. You'll also get a free copy of the Kybalion, limited time only. When you change the way you think, the world doesn't just look different, it responds differently. Conversations shift, opportunities show up, resistance fades. But not because the universe changed, because you did. You aligned your mind with a different frequency, and life followed. You stop reacting and start creating, and that's when the rules begin to bend. That's when you stop being a character in someone else's script and start writing your own. Mentalism isn't just the first law, it's the master key. The door is your mind. Now open it. If mentalism is the blueprint, then vibration is the current running through it. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every emotion you feel, it all generates a frequency. That's not poetic. That's physics. Ancient Hermeticism and modern quantum theory agree on this much. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Even what looks solid, your chair, your body, the walls around you, is vibrating at a microscopic level. And your mind? It's not just a processor of information. It's a transmitter, a signal tower, broadcasting your internal frequency into the world, all day, every day. When you walk into a room and feel the energy shift, that's not your imagination. It's your nervous system picking up vibrational cues. When someone's words sound polite but something feels off, it's not the words, it's the frequency behind them. You've always known this, but no one taught you to trust it. The law of vibration teaches you to stop ignoring that sense and start mastering it. Because here's the truth, your results in life don't come from your effort alone. They come from your energetic state. That's why two people can work the same job, say the same things, even follow the same morning routine, and get wildly different outcomes. The person with aligned frequency, clear intention, focused emotion, stable energy, will always bend the world in ways the grinder can't. Vibration is the invisible architecture behind your reality. Fear vibrates low, love vibrates high. Gratitude, clarity, focus. These aren't just nice feelings. They're states of resonance. They pull people, experiences, and ideas toward you. But most people don't live from vibration. They live from reaction. They wake up, check their phone, absorb the chaos of the world before they've even anchored themselves, and then wonder why the day feels heavy. They scroll through bad news, enter a stress frequency, and drag that into their conversations, decisions, and outcomes. But vibration can be shifted deliberately. It starts with presence, awareness, becoming conscious of your emotional tone, catching yourself when you spiral into doubt, fear, bitterness, or anxiety, and not judging it, but choosing to rise above it. That doesn't mean faking joy. It means understanding that you can tune your state the same way you'd tune a radio. Focus is your dial. Emotion is your amplifier. Action is your confirmation. When all three align, you don't chase reality. Reality comes to you. This isn't magic, it's mechanics. The frequencies you dwell in determine what you're a match for. Scarcity minds attract lack. Victim energy attracts chaos. Empowered focus draws synchronicity. The law of vibration doesn't play favorites, it reflects. So the question becomes, what signal are you sending? Because the universe is always listening. And it doesn't speak English or Spanish or whatever language you grew up with. It speaks energy. To master vibration is to master momentum. Most people only change when they hit rock bottom, when pain becomes louder than inertia. But vibration lets you shift before things collapse. It lets you elevate not because you're desperate, but because you're deliberate. Once you start tuning in to how you feel, really feel, beneath the noise, you begin to sense your own signal, and you begin to shift it on purpose. Over time, this creates a baseline, a new default. Life stops feeling random. Patterns stabilize. People say you're lucky or glowing or different, but they don't see the work underneath. The frequency you hold silently reshapes the field around you. Your thoughts create the blueprint, but it's your vibration that brings it to life. So if you want to shift your world, don't just think differently, feel differently. Tune in, tune up, everything else will follow. The world doesn't happen to you, it happens through you. The third Hermetic law, correspondence, is the mirror principle. It tells you that everything you see outside of yourself is a reflection of something inside you, not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. The state of your mind, the emotions you feed, the beliefs you protect, they don't stay hidden. They shape your relationships, your health, your money, your chaos. Your reality is a feedback loop, and you're always broadcasting. Look around you. Look at the people you attract. the patterns you repeat, the situations that seem to follow you no matter where you go. That's not just bad luck or coincidence. It's correspondence. The external mirrors the internal. The micro reflects the macro. If you feel like the world is against you, you have to ask, what part of you is still fighting yourself? If your life feels stagnant, what part of your spirit have you silenced? The outside world is a canvas, and the paint is your state of being. But here's the part that's hardest to accept. It also means you're responsible for more than you think. Because if what's outside is the result of what's inside, then waiting for your environment to change before you change yourself is backwards. You can move cities, leave relationships, change jobs, start new routines, but if the internal blueprint stays the same, the external outcome will echo it. Different scenery, same cycle. This is why people find themselves dating the same person in a different body, why they leave toxic workplaces only to attract the same dysfunction somewhere else. It's not about the external, it's about the unconscious internal script you haven't rewritten yet. The law of correspondence is a wake-up call, but it's also pure liberation. Because once you understand it, you stop trying to force change out there. You stop wasting energy, begging people to treat you differently, hoping systems will save you, or blaming fate for your circumstances. You go within. You identify the pattern at the source. You see where you're operating from wounds, from fear, from survival, and you shift that. Then, without trying, things around you start to reorganize. The catch? It takes radical honesty. You can't lie to yourself and master this law. You have to look in the mirror without flinching. You have to stop calling your coping mechanisms personality traits. You have to admit where you've been living on autopilot, reacting from old programming, replaying childhood scripts like they still serve you. Because if your outer world is chaos, chances are your inner world has been neglected. And the truth is, there is no escape from self. Wherever you go, there you are. So you might as well make it a home you can trust. When you shift your internal world, your beliefs, your values, your expectations, the outer world has no choice but to respond. Because the law of correspondence doesn't discriminate. It just reflects. It reflects your doubts, your confidence, your fear, your forgiveness, your shame, your self-worth. So what would happen if you cleaned the mirror? If you aligned your inner world with clarity, integrity, purpose? You wouldn't need to chase healing. It would ripple outward. You wouldn't have to beg people to respect you. Your boundaries would speak for themselves. You wouldn't have to force change. It would happen as a consequence of your inner alignment. This is why ancient mystics, philosophers, and awakened thinkers always pointed inward. Not because the world doesn't matter, but because the world is you. Reality isn't something you fix, it's something you tune. And the clearer the signal inside, the cleaner the reflection outside. As within, so without. As above, so below. The question isn't, what needs to change out there? The real question is, what's it trying to show me in here? You've been taught to see the world in black and white, good or bad, success or failure, love or hate. But life doesn't move in absolutes, it moves in degrees. The fourth Hermetic law, the law of polarity, reveals something most people never realize. Opposites aren't enemies. They're extremes of the same thing. Hot and cold are both temperature. Light and dark are both light. Fear and courage, same spectrum. What changes is the degree, your position on the line. And the moment you understand that, you unlock one of the most powerful hidden tools in existence, the ability to shift your inner state without fighting it. Most people are stuck not because they're broken, but because they think they have to swing from one end to the other in one dramatic leap. They think peace means eliminating all anger, or confidence means erasing all doubt. But that's not how polarity works. Polarity is about movement, transmutation, sliding yourself along the spectrum through awareness and choice. When you feel anxious, you don't need to force yourself into joy. You learn to shift toward calm. When you feel stuck in fear, you don't need to fake confidence. You simply begin to move toward courage. one conscious degree at a time. This is emotional alchemy. It's the art of transmuting internal states instead of being ruled by them. But society never taught you how to do this. It taught you to suppress, to numb, to distract, or to explode. And so your emotions rule you, not because they're powerful, but because you never learned their language. Polarity changes that. It shows you that every emotion has its place. Every state has its purpose. The key isn't to kill the negative. It's to understand its place in the cycle and learn how to use it. Anger, when transmuted, becomes boundaries. Fear, when understood, becomes caution. Grief, when honored, becomes wisdom. But if you label everything you feel as either good or bad, you lose access to this power. You get trapped in judgment. You beat yourself up for feeling low instead of recognizing it as a natural part of the rhythm. This is why so many people feel emotionally exhausted. They're fighting themselves all the time, chasing only the highs and fearing the lows. But what if the low wasn't the enemy? What if it was just the other end of the current you haven't yet learned to ride? The law of polarity reminds you that you don't need to stay stuck at one end. You can move, not by suppressing what you feel, but by directing it. This is internal jujitsu. When you learn how to pivot emotional energy, when you recognize that even the darkest emotions are still your energy, you stop being afraid of your inner world. You start to use it. You become emotionally sovereign. And that sovereignty means you're no longer at the mercy of circumstances, triggers, or the opinions of others. You decide where you want to be on the spectrum. You decide how to move. People who master polarity aren't emotionless. They're fluent. They don't avoid discomfort. They transmute it. They don't deny pain. They alchemize it. That's power. Not pretending to always be happy, but knowing how to navigate every state without getting hijacked by it. Because when you master your emotional spectrum, you stop reacting like a puppet. You start responding like a creator. The world will always try to push you to extremes. Love or hate, fight or freeze, right or wrong. But polarity gives you a third option, mastery. And when you can stand in the middle of the storm, choose your internal position, and shift deliberately toward the state you want to embody, nothing can touch you. The pendulum may swing, but you no longer swing with it. You choose your direction. You shift your charge. You move the energy. And in doing so, you shift reality itself. Nothing in your life stays still. Not your emotions, not your relationships, not your circumstances. Everything moves. Everything cycles. This is the law of rhythm, and it's not a poetic metaphor. It's a mechanism. The tides rise and fall. The sun rises, sets, and rises again. The seasons turn. The moon waxes and wanes. Your energy expands and contracts. Yet somehow, you were conditioned to believe that if something goes down, it's failing. If you feel low, you're broken. If things slow down, you're falling behind. But rhythm isn't failure, it's nature. And mastering rhythm means learning how to ride the waves instead of getting crushed by them. When things are going well, most people forget the rhythm. They assume the high will last forever. They overextend, overpromise, overconsume. Then the natural dip comes, the cycle shifts, and they panic. They resist. They think they did something wrong. They try to scramble back to the high by force. And when it doesn't work, they spiral. But the Hermetic truth is this: the swing of the pendulum to the left is equal to the swing to the right. What rises will fall, and what falls will rise. Not because you're cursed, because that's how energy moves. The key is not to stop the swing, it's to stop being controlled by it. When you're up, prepare. When you're down, reflect. Every phase has its power. Highs give you momentum. Lows give you wisdom. Highs are for action. Lows are for realignment. But society tells you to hustle through the lows, to numb them, to fake energy you don't have, to shame yourself for needing rest. That's not mastery. That's denial. And Denial always leads to burnout. People who understand rhythm don't panic when the wave dips. They don't label themselves as lazy or lost or unworthy when they feel tired or unclear. They know it's part of the cycle. They know a dip isn't the end, it's the reset. They learn to work with the rhythm instead of against it. They rest with intention. They reflect with honesty. They prepare quietly. Then, when the wave rises again, they ride it with clarity and force. Not because they forced it, but because they respected the pattern. Rhythm shows up in your thoughts, your moods, your income, your health, your focus. It's not random, it's precise. And when you start to observe your own cycles, your emotional tides, your productive peaks, your natural ebbs, you stop living like a robot and start living like a human being. You stop resisting the lows and start using them. Because every downturn has an instruction. Every lull has a message. You're either listening or you're drowning. Think about how you've been taught to measure progress. It's always linear, up and to the right. But real growth moves in spirals, cycles, rhythms. It revisits old wounds with new awareness. It dips so you can anchor deeper. It pauses so you can level up. You don't lose when you rest, you integrate. You don't fall off when you slow down, you prepare. The law of rhythm doesn't mean you'll never feel unstable. It means you'll stop making it mean something's wrong with you. You'll learn to hold your center while the wave moves around you. And that changes everything. Because the moment you stop fearing the dip is the moment you stop losing your power during it. You become predictable to yourself. You start timing your life like a surfer catching the perfect set. And suddenly, you're no longer chasing stability, you're flowing with it. You can't stop the swing, but you can stop being swung. Master that, and life becomes less of a fight and more of a dance. You've been told that life is random, that some people are just lucky, that things just happen. But randomness is a story sold to people who don't know how to trace the cause. The sixth Hermetic principle, cause and effect, blows that story apart. It says, nothing happens without a reason. No event, no outcome, no failure, no success is isolated. Every result is a ripple of a cause. Some of those causes are obvious: decisions, actions, habits. Others are hidden: subconscious beliefs, emotional loops, buried traumas, ancestral patterns. But make no mistake, everything that shows up in your life can be traced back to something. You may not like what you find, but the path is there. Most people don't live from cause, they live from effect. They react to problems instead of investigating their roots. They label themselves unlucky instead of examining their choices. They blame the world, the economy, the system, and sometimes, yes, those things do matter. But even within those limitations, the principle still applies. How you respond, what you believe, where you focus, and what you tolerate, all have consequences. Energy moves in predictable patterns. And when you stop acting like life is happening to you, and start asking what you're creating through your own actions, thoughts, and energy, you shift from victim to initiator, from pawn to player. There's a reason the most powerful people in the world obsess over strategy. They understand cause and effect. They don't leave things to chance. They build systems that produce results. You can do the same. Not in some manipulative or rigid way, but in a conscious way. Want different outcomes? Trace the chain. What led here? What belief sparked this pattern? What emotion reinforced it? What behavior kept it alive? This is how you take your power back, not by forcing change, but by understanding where it begins. Your subconscious plays a huge role in this. You're not just influenced by what you think, you're influenced by what you believe without even knowing you believe it. And those hidden beliefs, they create causes. They shape your expectations, your reactions, your tone of voice, your body language, your decisions. You might be saying you want something, but your unconscious behavior is creating a different outcome entirely. That's not sabotage. That's misalignment. And once you see it, you can change it. People often wait for clarity before they act. But clarity doesn't usually come first, cause does. Action is a cause. Focus is a cause. Intention is a cause. You don't need to wait until you feel ready to start creating new results. You just need to start moving differently, thinking differently, responding differently. When your inner world begins to shift, new effects begin to emerge. Not overnight, but inevitably. The most dangerous belief is that you don't have influence, that you're just a passenger. Because that belief creates apathy. Apathy creates stagnation, and stagnation produces more of the same. Cause and effect isn't about blame, it's about precision. It's about understanding that there's a formula under every outcome. And if you want to change the math, you have to change the variables. It doesn't require perfection. It requires awareness, intention, follow through. Imagine if every setback was seen not as punishment, but as data. Imagine if every result, good or bad, was a breadcrumb leading you to the root. That's how creators think. They don't just celebrate results. They study them. They adjust. They refine. They test new inputs. And over time, they build lives that seem almost magical from the outside. But it's not magic. It's mechanics. Invisible, intelligent, repeatable. This is why the game isn't rigged. It's programmed. You've been running old code, unconscious patterns, stories handed to you. But code can be rewritten. Systems can be upgraded. And once you begin to operate from cause, consciously, intentionally, you stop waiting for life to change. You become the change. And the effects will speak for themselves. Forget everything you were taught about masculine and feminine. These energies have nothing to do with biology, sexual orientation, or outdated cultural roles. The seventh Hermetic principle, gender, is about energy, creation, balance, integration. Every person holds both masculine and feminine energy within them. You've felt both. One pushes forward, penetrates, takes action. The other receives, nurtures, intuits. One is structure, the other is flow. One is the riverbank, the other is the water. And when they're out of balance, your life feels off, no matter how much you try to fix it on the surface. Most people are walking around dominated by one energy and disconnected from the other. Too much masculine energy, and you're in constant hustle mode, grinding, forcing, proving. You're productive but burned out. You feel empty, even when you succeed. Too much feminine energy, and you're floating, creative, intuitive, but ungrounded, indecisive, stuck in loops of waiting for things to happen. Balance isn't about being 50-50 every day. It's about knowing which energy to activate when, and having the awareness and maturity to shift between them consciously. Masculine energy is direction, clarity, and execution. It gets things done, but without the feminine, it becomes cold, rigid, and disconnected from meaning. Feminine energy is inspiration, emotion, receptivity. It dreams, feels, and opens doors you couldn't push through. But without the masculine, it becomes chaotic, passive, and overwhelmed. The real power lives in their union. When the feminine receives the vision and the masculine brings it to life, creation happens. When the masculine holds the container and the feminine flows within it, magic unfolds. This union is what builds empires, heals wounds, and births new realities. But society doesn't teach this. It teaches competition between the two. It teaches men to reject their feminine and women to fear their masculine. It labels softness as weakness and structure as oppression. And in doing so, it keeps you fragmented, off-center, and easy to manipulate. Because when you're disconnected from half your power, you're never whole. You're never rooted. You're always searching. Look at your life. Where are you overusing one energy and suppressing the other? Are you constantly doing, pushing, proving, but never resting, receiving, or listening to your gut? Or are you endlessly dreaming, planning, feeling, but never acting, committing, following through? Balance is everything. Not just for your peace, but for your power. When you integrate both energies, you move differently. You make decisions with clarity and intuition. You create with purpose and passion. You rest without guilt and act without hesitation. You stop swinging between extremes and start walking the middle path, with power. This isn't just about personal development. This is ancient architecture. Every act of creation, from a business to a relationship to a thought, requires both energies. The idea is conceived in the feminine. The structure is built by the masculine. Your job is to honor both, to listen to your inner knowing and then back it with action, to hold space for emotion without getting lost in it, to move forward without bulldozing what's sacred. Mastering gender energy doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means becoming whole. It means reclaiming the parts of yourself you were taught to ignore. It means knowing when to receive and when to assert, when to surrender and when to lead. And it means understanding that power isn't found in domination or submission, but in integration. The most magnetic, powerful people you'll ever meet have mastered this dance. They don't just do or feel, they embody. They move with intention. They channel the right energy at the right time. And the world responds. Not because they're louder or smarter or luckier, but because they're aligned. You don't have to choose between strength and softness, logic and intuition, doing and being. You were never meant to. Your power lives in the fusion. And when you stop fighting yourself, stop suppressing half your nature, and start working with the full spectrum of your energy, you don't just live more fully. You create more powerfully. You become unstoppable. By now, it's clear these 7 principles aren't abstract theories or philosophical fluff. They're not something you believe in like an idea. They're something you live through whether you know it or not. That's the truth they never wanted you to realize. These laws operate all the time, in all places, with or without your awareness. And that's what makes them so dangerous to the systems that rely on your unconscious compliance. Because once you become aware of them, really aware, you can't be manipulated in the same way. You start seeing through things. You stop playing small. You stop waiting. Mentalism shows you that your mind is the source of your reality. Vibration shows you how your emotional state either magnetizes or repels outcomes. Correspondence reveals the mirror between inner and outer worlds. Polarity gives you the ability to shift states and master your emotional terrain. Rhythm teaches you how to flow with life instead of crashing against it. Cause and effect shows you how to stop reacting and start initiating. And gender is the key to wholeness, to balance, to creating with both precision and power. When you integrate these powers, something shifts, subtly at first. You start catching yourself before you spiral. You respond instead of react. You become aware of the energy behind your words, the intention behind your actions, the tone behind your thoughts. You stop feeling like life is something that happens to you. You start recognizing yourself as the generator, the broadcaster, the architect. That's not spiritual ego, it's sober awareness. You can't control everything, but you can influence your field. And when your internal world is aligned with these laws, the external world has no choice but to reflect it. The biggest trap is thinking you need to master them all perfectly before you see results. You don't. You just need to practice consciously. Pick one, begin there, observe, play, adjust. And slowly, this old way of living, the reactive, scattered, externally driven life, begins to dissolve. Not because you forced it to go away, but because it no longer fits the version of you who's waking up. You're not just shifting what you do, you're shifting who you are. That's real transformation. That's where these ancient teachings were always meant to lead, not into abstraction, but into embodiment. You're not here to just absorb this knowledge, you're here to live it. These laws were never meant to stay on dusty pages in forgotten books. They were meant to be activated through you, your mind, your choices, your rhythm, your frequency. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't need to reach some mystical state. You just need to remember. These are not foreign ideas, they're forgotten truths. The more you lean into them, the more natural they feel. Because on some level you already knew. And the deeper truth, You've always been creating. Always. The only difference now is you'll be doing it on purpose, with awareness, with alignment, with power. You weren't born disconnected. You were born awake, whole, and fully in tune. As a child, you moved with rhythm. You trusted your intuition. You felt emotion without apology, imagined freely, acted without hesitation. You hadn't yet learned to suppress, to shrink, to second guess. But then came the conditioning, the rules, the pressure to conform, to behave, to fit in. Slowly, the world taught you to abandon yourself, to trade inner wisdom for approval, to fear failure, to stop asking why. And underneath it all, you were taught that power existed outside of you, that it belonged to systems, experts, leaders, authorities. But here's what no one told you. Your power never left. It just got buried under layers of noise. The 7 Hermetic principles are not things you need to acquire. They're things you need to remember. You don't need to master ancient texts to feel this. You've already lived parts of it. Every time your mind shifted and your reality followed, that was mentalism. Every moment your energy affected a room, or a decision, or a stranger, that was vibration. When your life mirrored your emotional state so precisely it stunned you, that was correspondence. When you pulled yourself out of darkness, not by denying the pain but by slowly shifting into light, that was polarity. When you noticed that the chaos always came in cycles, or that success had a rhythm you could feel but not explain, that was rhythm. When you traced the root of a pattern and finally broke it, that was cause and effect. And when you found flow by balancing action with surrender, that was gender. You've been practicing fragments of these truths your whole life. Now you're just seeing the whole blueprint. Living by these laws isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming the version of yourself who's no longer blind to how reality really works. The version who doesn't outsource responsibility, who doesn't beg for permission, who doesn't blame, avoid, or delay. It's not perfection, it's precision. Subtle shifts in awareness that produce powerful results over time. The more aligned you are with these laws, the less you fight life, and the more you shape it. And that's the real shift. You stop chasing what's already inside you. You stop reacting and start designing. You stop surviving and start transmitting. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you've stopped fighting reality and started collaborating with it. The chaos is still there. The world still spins. But you're no longer spinning with it. You've anchored something deeper. If you're not signed up for Insights Academy yet, you're missing out on what we don't share anywhere else. This is the real work, and you'll get your free copy of the Kybalion too. It's not a reward. It's a return to what should have always been yours. This knowledge doesn't belong to the elite. It was never meant to be hidden behind temples or textbooks. It's encoded into the structure of life itself. You just needed the lens to see it. Now that you have it, the question isn't, what next? The question is, what will you create with it? That's the quiet challenge embedded in every Hermetic law. Do something with this. Test it. Play with it. Build something real. You don't need certainty to begin, just curiosity and courage. Everything else will meet you on the path. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it,"